He just wanted breakfast. No begging, no bothering anyone, just quietly walking into the same diner he's been going to every Tuesday morning for the past 4 years, sitting at the same old seat. But that day, two police officers walked in, and within 10 minutes, that man's life was dragged into the spotlight. They didn't see a veteran. They saw a homeless guy in an old jacket, sitting in the corner. And like so many others before them, they thought, he doesn't belong here. They were wrong, and this time, their mistake wouldn't just quietly fade away. You're about to hear a story that might change the way you look at homeless people forever. A man who once served his country, who came back with scars no one could see, now publicly humiliated just for wanting a decent breakfast. But then, one phone call, one old ID card, and the entire system started to shake. This isn't the story of a homeless veteran being celebrated as a hero. This is a story about dignity, injustice, and how one man society ignored made the whole country stop and pay attention. You're about to find out why the entire city of Huntsville went silent, why a few minutes of body cam footage outraged millions, and why, on that day, America finally stopped talking about pity for veterans and started demanding respect. Are you ready? Because this story isn't just about Raymond Booker. It could be about any one of us, if one day the world decides it no longer wants to see you. 8:07 a.m. A slight chill hung in the air in Huntsville, Alabama, like winter refusing to leave, even though the calendar said it was already April. The small street along Washington Avenue was still quiet. An old postal van idled by the curb. The bakery next door had just flipped on its lights. And right in the middle of the block, wedged between a watch repair shop and a $5 barbershop, was a little diner called Maggie's. Not famous, not on Yelp or any must-visit lists, just a place where people come to eat slightly overcooked eggs, drink slightly bitter coffee, and hear the owner talk about the stray cat living behind the kitchen. And in the corner booth by the window, under a crooked wall clock that hadn't been straight in years, he was sitting there again, Raymond Booker. No one in the diner called him by his full name. They just said, "That's him, the guy in the corner, the veteran, the one who never bothers anyone." Every Tuesday morning, Raymond walked into Maggie's around 8 a.m., never ordered, never asked. The waitress, her name was Lily, would just nod and head to the back. Scrambled eggs, grits, 2 slices of toast, no jelly, no sugar, black coffee. He never asked for anything else. Raymond was in his 60s. Faded military jacket, frayed at the cuffs, shaved but not clean-shaven, smelled like hand-rolled cigarettes, hot coffee running, and something old, like a memory you can't quite place but can't forget either. No one knew where he slept. No one asked. Because Raymond never asked anything of anyone. He always paid in cash, exact change, and thanked the waitress like the meal was a privilege. Some whispered he served in Syria. Others said special forces, maybe. But Raymond never confirmed a thing. He just sat there reading an old paper, gazing out the window, eating like every bite of egg was worth savoring. In a noisy world, he was a pause. In a rushing country, he was a reminder. Respect doesn't need noise, just presence. But that Tuesday wasn't like the others, because before he could even finish his first cup of coffee, 2 police officers walked in. And from that moment on, Raymond's usual booth, the quiet man, and Maggie's diner would never be the same again. Sometimes you don't need weapons to hurt someone. All it takes is a judgmental look, a question loaded with disrespect to push a man to the edge of humiliation. And that morning, inside a tiny diner, that's exactly what happened to a homeless veteran who once served his country, but was treated like a nuisance for trying to eat breakfast. Langley walked in first. Tall, broad shoulders, boots echoing sharply on the tile floor. Behind him was Reese, square jaw, quiet, notebook in hand, both in uniform, neither bringing kindness. They didn't ask for a table, didn't look at the menu, didn't greet anyone. Langley's eyes went straight to Raymond, still sitting quietly in his corner, just like every Tuesday for 4 years. "Sir," Langley began, "are you a customer here?" Raymond slowly set his coffee cup down, nodded. "Yes." "Did you order anything yet?" Reese followed up, pen already scribbling in his notepad. "Breakfast," Raymond replied. "I already paid." Lily, the young waitress, stepped out from behind the counter hesitantly. "He's a regular. Comes in every week, always polite." "Ma'am," Langley turned his head, voice cold. Did I ask you anything? The diner fell silent. No one said a word. Only tension spread thick and tight, the kind of silence that makes your chest clench. Langley stared back at Raymond. Do you have any ID on you? Raymond opened his coat and pulled out an old, worn leather wallet. From it, he took a Veterans Affairs card. Langley snatched it, glanced at it, then scoffed. This all you've got? Raymond nodded. It's enough. But to them, it wasn't. Langley stepped back half a pace, arms crossed. Reese stood close to the table, eyeing Raymond from head to toe. You're homeless, right? He asked. Raymond didn't react right away. He exhaled lightly. I don't have a house, but I have a place in this town. The words were simple, but carried a weight so deep, Reese actually scoffed under his breath. Langley chuckled darkly. You homeless vets always think the world owes you something. Raymond didn't respond. He just looked up, calm, unwavering. And it was that calm that unsettled them. Reese leaned in, his face close to Raymond's. How long do you plan on sitting here? Raymond blinked. Until I finish my breakfast. That was the tipping point. No one in the diner dared to breathe. They all knew something was wrong, painfully obvious, but no one knew what to say. Langley's hand moved to his belt, resting on the pair of steel cuffs. I'm going to need you to come outside with me. Now. Raymond didn't answer. He took one last sip of coffee, then, slowly, pulled out an old flip phone from the inside pocket of his jacket. Outdated. Worn. Just like his coat. One number. One short call. He raised the phone to his ear and spoke, each word slow, clear, and deliberate. It's happening again. No one understood what that meant. Not right away. But within minutes, they would. Because this homeless veteran was not someone you disrespect, and he was not alone. The call ended after just 3 words. No explanations, no begging, no panic, just one phrase, it's happening again. And when Raymond Booker closed the flip phone and set it gently beside his empty coffee cup, the entire diner froze. Langley stared at him, confused, rattled. Who the hell did you just call? He muttered, his voice dropping, heffing. But something uncertain flickered in his eyes. Raymond didn't respond. He folded the phone closed and placed it calmly on the table. His voice was steady, low. You said you're just doing your job? Now I'm doing mine. Langley clenched his jaw. Fingers brushing the handcuffs again. Stand up, you're coming with me, now. And so, Raymond Booker, the man everyone in town knew as the quiet homeless vet, finally stood up. Slow, straight, steady, no fear, no shame. He looked Langley straight in the eye and said softly, I don't want trouble. But trouble had already arrived. Not because of Raymond, but because of eyes that refused to look past the dust and time worn into that faded jacket. Langley stepped forward, grabbed Raymond's wrist. The cuffs clicked open in his other hand and Swanus. Then the diner door burst open. No sirens, no shouting, just one man in a deep navy suit walking in like he owned the place. In his hand, a black leather wallet, flipped open just as the sunlight hit it. Miles Terrell, Assistant Director, U.S. Department of Justice. Langley froze. Reese, who had just returned from the patrol car, stopped in his tracks in the middle of the aisle. Terrell didn't raise his voice. He only said 2 sentences. Badge numbers. Both of you. Now. Langley opened his mouth to respond, but he didn't get the chance. Terrell continued. You are both being recorded. You approached a civilian without probable cause, ignored the business owner's testimony, and threatened a homeless veteran in a place where he was a paying customer. The air in the diner turned thick. No one touched their food. Coffees sat cooling in forgotten hands. Only the truth remained, rising like steam until it could no longer be ignored. Reese stammered, Sir, we received a complaint. From whom? Terrell asked, eyes locked on Langley. No one answered, because the story of someone called it in was just a cover, a weak excuse for power to be misused without question. Terrell stepped closer to Raymond's table. Raymond didn't move. He just stood still, silently, like he had known this moment was coming all along. Are you okay, Raymond? Terrell asked softly, just loud enough for the two of them to hear. Raymond nodded. I didn't want to call you, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Terrell looked at him, and something in his eyes softened. I understand. Langley and Reese, now stripped of their authority, quietly walked out of the diner under the cold, silent stares of the bystanders who had witnessed everything. No one saw them out. No one said a word, because what had just happened said more than enough. Raymond sat back down in his usual seat. But now he was no longer just the quiet man in the corner. Now he was a living reminder that respect should never come only after someone's been hurt. That could have been the end of it. A veteran protected, two officers reprimanded, everyone going back to their pancakes and lukewarm coffee. But no, because what Langley and Reese forgot was that they were wearing body cams. And out there, millions of eyes were just waiting for one spark to ignite. That afternoon, an anonymous account posted the body cam footage to TikTok. The angle from Reese's chest clearly showed Raymond being questioned, disrespected, physically touched without resistance. It captured the calm in his eyes as he made the call, and it showed the exact moment Miles Terrell walked in, like he had stepped out of a movie. The hashtag Raymond Booker started spreading. Then homeless veteran justice. Then dignity is not optional. Within 6 hours, the video hit 2.3 million views. Twitter exploded. Reddit threads broke down every frame in outrage. Veteran groups across Facebook shared it relentlessly. We've all been Raymond, but most of us didn't have a Terrell. And then, even those who usually stayed silent began to speak. A truck driver who served in the Marines wrote, "I once got kicked out of a diner just for wearing a torn jacket. Today I saw myself in his eyes." A woman who lost her husband, also a vet, posted, "They honored us at the funeral, but afterward came silence. He was disrespected, and yet he didn't shout. He just stood there, like my husband once did." On the local evening news, the anchor opened the broadcast with this line, "Today, America saw a man, and America fell silent." Raymond knew none of this. He didn't own a smartphone, had no social media accounts. That night, he slept at the local homeless shelter on a metal-framed bed with his old jacket rolled up under his head as a pillow. But outside, the world was moving for him. On CNN, a former FBI director said, "It's not because he resisted. It's because he didn't need to resist to be worth something." In Washington, D.C., a bipartisan group of lawmakers issued a formal statement demanding a full investigation into police conduct in Huntsville. A national nonprofit announced it would fund permanent housing for Raymond if he wanted it. A senior journalist at The Atlantic sent an email, "I don't want to interview you as a victim. I want you to be a witness to what America is often afraid to confront." Back at Maggie's, Lily, the waitress, washed glasses while watching the video on her phone. She didn't say a word, just wiped away tears with her sleeve. "He always said thank you when I refilled his coffee," she whispered, and they looked at him like he was garbage. Maybe it was because he never asked for anything, that the world assumed he didn't need anything. But a homeless veteran like Raymond deserved so much more, even if he never once demanded it. Do you know what happens when an entire nation suddenly wants to know who you are? Not to judge you, not to pity you, but because they can't believe someone like you could be treated like that. Monday afternoon, barely 36 hours after the body cam footage went live, the digging began, not just to rage, to understand. A Reddit user posted an old, slightly blurry black and white photo, 3 soldiers in fatigues sitting in the sand somewhere in the Middle East. One of them, plain as day, is Raymond, younger, thinner, but with the same eyes, steady, alert, profoundly tired. The image raced through veteran forums. Someone finally confirmed, "I know that man. He was with Task Force Blackthorn, an elite hostage rescue unit that operated in Syria and Afghanistan." Task Force Blackthorn. No Wikipedia page. No newspaper archives. Just a whispered name in military circles. If you'd served there, you'd seen things ordinary people should never know. Next came a commendation letter. Most of it blacked out. Only one line was readable. For extraordinary courage and restraint during Operation Halberd, Sergeant Raymond Booker prevented a civilian massacre under extreme pressure. The story blew up. Mainstream outlets joined in. On MSNBC, a retired commander said Raymond Booker isn't just a veteran, he saved lives, and America let him sleep in a shelter, voiceless, until a camera caught him being humiliated. Investigative pieces followed. 3 tours in the Middle East, wounded yet refused medical retirement, declined every interview offer after discharge. No public medal ceremony, missions were classified by case. But past deeds weren't the only revelation. People started asking tougher questions. Why did a special operations veteran spend 10 years homeless without help? Why didn't the VA process his file sooner? Why aren't cops trained to recognize vets? How many more Raymonds are still invisible? It stopped being just a shocking clip. It became a symbol. Veterans in 17 states held small rallies, hoisting signs. Uh, we see you, Raymond. Not just a hashtag. Homeless, worthless. A Georgia law school clinic filed a petition for an independent city probe. A documentary filmmaker asked, if a hero must endure public shame to be believed, maybe we built justice wrong from the start. Raymond heard the news from Lily, who printed articles and folded them into neat bundles. He said nothing, just read each page, unblinking. When he reached the faded hostage rescue photo, he set the paper down, poured more coffee, and murmured, I don't want to be remembered for what I did. I want to be respected for still being here. Facts can hide in sealed files, but cameras don't, and the internet absolutely doesn't. With Raymond Booker flooding headlines, Huntsville City Hall could no longer stay silent. 3 days after the incident, the Huntsville Police Department held a press conference. The spokesperson's voice was flat, eyes dodging the lenses. We're conducting internal investigation. We honor our veterans. This was an unfortunate misunderstanding. The public wasn't buying it. Because this time they had proof. Clear footage of 2 officers treating a homeless vet like trash to be swept away. Old dust began to lift off thicker files. Reporters uncovered the records of officers Langley and Reese. Langley, the one who cuffed Raymond, had at least 7 prior complaints for profiling and harassment against people of color, the unhoused, and veterans, all handled internally. No discipline. Reese, silent during the diner scene, was involved in a 2021 wrong house raid where a PTSD vet was badly injured after panicking. That case also disappeared. Now those cases were back, and this time, public outrage was the attorney. No brushing aside, no hush-ups. Under mounting pressure, Langley was suspended without pay. Reese took indefinite leave. The department's review board was forced to add independent veteran group oversight, a first. A DC civil rights lawyer tweeted, "This isn't about 2 bad cops. It's about a system used to never being questioned." Meanwhile, inside Maggie's diner, life stayed simple. Coffee kept pouring. Pancakes still came out a little burnt. And Raymond sat at his old table, quiet as always. But now no one dared look past him. No one pretended he was just background scenery ever again. One Wednesday morning, a stranger, well-dressed and composed, walked into Maggie's diner. He hesitated, then politely asked if he could sit at Raymond's table. Gently, he placed a small envelope on the table and bowed his head. "I used to be a soldier too, but I stayed silent for too long, while men like you were treated with disrespect. This letter is addressed to the city council, a formal request to investigate every incident like yours, and I'm signing it with my real name." True respect doesn't come from rank. It comes from action, and Raymond Booker, a homeless veteran, became the reason many people stood up for the first time after years of staying quiet. People often think helping means giving someone what they lack, but sometimes what a person truly needs is simply to be treated like they've always deserved. 4 days after the incident at Maggie's, a silver van pulled up outside the local shelter. 2 men stepped out. Sharp suits, small name badges on their chests, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. They didn't barge in. They asked to see Raymond, and then waited for him outside on the porch, holding a sealed envelope. Inside, an apology. A letter titled from the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. The younger employee's voice trembled slightly as he read, "We sincerely apologize for the assistance you should have received, but didn't. Attached is a fast-tracked review of your case, including immediate eligibility for housing, mental health services, full VA benefits, and insurance. You will be assigned a personal caseworker. And if you'd like, there's a warm, furnished apartment available just 4 blocks from Maggie's diner." Raymond didn't respond right away. He just looked at the paper, holding it like someone holds a long overdue debt finally being repaid. "Thank you," he said softly. "But I don't need an apology, I need change." The staff member nodded. "Yes, sir. That's exactly why we're here today." That night, for the first time in years, Raymond didn't sleep at the shelter. He laid on a real bed in a small apartment with a heater and a window overlooking the bare trees of winter. On the table beside him, his old, worn VA card, and next to it, a small wooden box, inside a medal that was never presented publicly. The next day, when Lily asked how he felt, Raymond just smiled. "Feels strange. Haven't slept without using my coat as a pillow in a long time." But Raymond didn't fade into the shadows, didn't disappear like people expect of those who suddenly go viral. He showed up at a local high school for a senior student forum. No microphones, no press, just a quiet introduction from the principal. Everyone, this is Mr. Booker, a man who's lived quietly in this town for a long time, and maybe it's time we finally listened. Raymond stood, slowly, no notes, no speech. He spoke about a morning in the Syrian desert, his team injured, the radio dead, the sky pitch black, and how every decision came down to instinct and honor. He spoke about the silence after coming home, the ache of years without a greeting, without being asked how he was, without being believed. And finally, he said, "People will look at you and label you, rich or poor, white or black, polite or suspicious. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is ask someone their name and invite them to sit at your table." The room was silent, no applause, just the quiet sound of hearts softening, a few eyes welling up, because while society can honor someone with a medal, a place to live, a trending hashtag, what people need most is to be heard without being judged. Have you ever seen an empty chair and felt like it was holding someone? To Raymond, that chair wasn't just for breakfast. It was a symbol of presence, of listening, of a life no longer invisible. Sunday morning. The air still held a chill. Sunlight pushed gently through the dusty windows of Maggie's diner. No cameras, no reporters, just another ordinary morning, exactly the way Raymond Booker always liked it. But this time, when he walked in, every eye paused, just for a moment. Not because he was famous, but because he had become the embodiment of something we all once ignored. He still wore his old jacket, but now the sleeve had been carefully mended, not to show off, but to remind people anything that holds value deserves to be repaired, not thrown away. Harold, the owner, gave a small nod toward the familiar table. That table had remained empty all week. No one dared sit in it. Raymond walked over, but this time he didn't sit. He stood in the center of the little diner. His voice wasn't loud. No need to clink a glass, just a quiet, steady tone. "I have something to say." Everyone stopped. Lily lowered the coffee tray. Harold stood behind the counter, gripping a dish towel tightly. Raymond looked around, not with resentment, but with exhaustion. An exhaustion not born of the body, but of years spent proving he deserved to exist. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm not asking to be honored. I just want to eat breakfast without someone asking, 'What are you doing here?' I used to wear a badge. I used to save lives. I used to hold the line when everything else collapsed. But when I left the service, I disappeared from people's sight too." The diner went silent. No one touched their forks. No one sipped their drinks. Only his voice remained, steady, low, but each word like a bell ringing in their conscience. "This seat, this," he pointed to the booth he always sat at, "it's not a privilege, it's a statement that a homeless veteran still deserves a place in this community. I don't need a free house. I don't need a viral post with 1 million views. I just want to sit, eat, and be treated like a human being." A woman sitting near the door quietly set down her spoon. Her face shimmered with tears. No one clapped. No one needed to, because sometimes the loudest truth echoes in silence. And a man like Raymond, who had lived so quietly for so many years, was finally hearing his own voice reflected in the hearts of others. Raymond sat down, not with his head high like a victor, but simply like a man who knew he belonged. And this time, no one questioned it. The internet had moved on, a new scandal, a fresh clip, a celebrity caught in controversy. Attention, like always, had an expiration date. But what stayed was the change. At Maggie's, Raymond's seat was no longer left empty, but it was no longer disrespected either. Now people understood everyone carries a story they don't speak out loud. At the local high school, Raymond began showing up once a month, not to teach, not to talk about war, just to sit with the kids, to listen, and to talk about simple things: dignity, silence, and kindness. Teachers didn't quite know what to call him, so they just said, "This is Mr. Booker. You're going to want to hear what he has to say." No dramatic backstory, no viral video rolling behind him, just him, an old jacket, a raspy voice, eyes that had seen too many wounds, inside and out. Raymond didn't take interview requests, didn't sign book deals, didn't join political campaigns. He lived in a small apartment with a cactus on the windowsill, and every morning he walked past the old shelter. stopped for a few minutes, spoke to the people waiting for breakfast, not as someone who used to be there, but as someone who never left it in his heart. One late afternoon, a young boy ran up to him. "Are you the guy from the video?" Raymond paused and looked at him. "You're the one everyone shared." Raymond smiled. "No, I'm just the guy who still eats breakfast on time." The boy nodded. "But now people see you. They don't ignore you anymore." And maybe that was the biggest victory of all. Not being praised, not getting a house, a medal, or a front page feature, but simply people finally looked. And when they looked, they started to understand. Kindness doesn't make noise. It doesn't grab headlines. It doesn't argue. It just exists quietly, like a worn out jacket still worn every day. Just to remind us, some people never gave up their dignity, even when the world gave up on them. Raymond Booker never asked, "Why was I treated like this?" He only asked, "Why did no one stop to ask who I was?" And in that silence, an entire system had to bow its head, not because he shouted, but because he didn't have to shout to matter. One Sunday morning, people saw him again at Maggie's. Same booth, same black coffee, no sugar. This time, no one filmed. No one asked for an interview. A woman quietly left a handwritten note, "Thank you for reminding me that everyone deserves to be seen." Outside the diner, sunlight touched the old sign. A group of college students taped up a small poster by the door. "We've realized a hero doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it's a faded military jacket." In the months that followed, other diners in the area began placing reserved seat signs, an empty chair marked "For the veteran you didn't see." Not to commemorate, but to remind, because sometimes the only thing we need to do is look a little longer, listen a little deeper, and choose kindness even when no one is watching. Raymond was no longer just a homeless veteran in people's eyes. He had never changed. It was the world that finally chose to see him right. And if you've ever walked past someone without stopping to ask what they needed, think of Raymond. Not to pity, but to respect. Because that person may have once stood in a battlefield to protect you, and now all they need is a seat and a kind look. If this story touched you, share it. Speak a word to someone you usually walk past. And if you have ever felt like Raymond, you are not invisible. We see you, we hear you, and you matter.